Alright, quick update on the Bitcoin CME gaps. Now, as I'm sure all of you are aware, the Bitcoin price has started to massively cascade today on the opening on Monday. We are coming down to 22,900 as of the time of recording this, and because we've had this cascade, we've now come down and filled our second CME gap. The last time I talked about the CME gaps, we highlighted there were 3 CME gaps in the Bitcoin price, one being at the ranges of 33,000, correlating to the price gap back here in the 23rd of July. The second CME gap at 24,600, correlating to the price gap around the 28th of December 2020. And the third and final price gap over on the CME is down here at 18,500, correlating to the price gap around the 11th of December 2020. So, if you're new and you haven't heard of the CME gaps before, let me just quickly explain. The CME is referred to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and they run what are known as futures markets. This is basically the stock market equivalent of buying Bitcoin, and as I'm sure all of you are aware, the stock markets run Monday to Friday, and they do not run on Saturday and Sunday. Contrast to that, Bitcoin runs Monday to Sunday, 365 days a year, and it never shuts. So, because of this, when we chart the Bitcoin USD price over on the CME futures, you can see that we have these price gaps. So this was on Friday. This is when the CME futures closed on the 10th of June, and we have a price gap. Why do we have a price gap? Because the Bitcoin price continued to capitulate over the weekend. Because of this, we opened the markets over on the CME futures today on the 13th of June at 27,400 when we closed the futures markets at 28,900 over the weekend. Because of this, we have what is known as a CME gap. So just hypothetically, we now have a new CME gap and it is above us at 28,960. So why do we care? Why do we talk about CME gaps? Well, typically the price is always magnetized back to the CME gaps. Let me show you a few examples before we talk about this. Now, when you zoom in, you can see there was a price gap right here at 54,000. What did we do? The price went on a run, and as you can see, it came right back down and filled the price gap. But what happened while we were on the run up? We actually had another price gap. You can see there was a price gap between the ranges of 58,900 and basically 60,000. What happened because of this? Well, the price came up and we broke back down, and once again we filled another of those CME gaps. We made another price gap while we were filling this CME gap. You can see we have a CME gap between the ranges of 61,900 down here to 57,100, and we pumped up and we didn't quite fill it until we broke back above later on in the year and filled the CME gap. When you do look at the Bitcoin chart, we predominantly always fill these CME gaps. There are a few exceptions. We do not fill every CME gap, but the price is normally magnetized to these CME gaps because the price likes to come back to where it closed over on the weekend. What does this mean for the Bitcoin price? Well, we are now currently in a dilemma because we are faced between two CME gaps. Let me mark these as orange so we can distinguish between the ones that have previously been hit and the ones that we should be focusing on at this moment in time. Now, we have two CME gaps. One down here at 18,500 that we had all the way back here in December of 2020. And in my opinion, I do think it is fairly likely that we would come back down and fill this price gap, just like I also feel like it would be likely for us not only to fill this price gap, but to at some point come up to 29,000 and fill the CME gap. Now, I feel like that's a given. I believe, in my opinion, that Bitcoin's going to millions of dollars in my lifetime, obviously not in the next week, not in the next month, not in the next couple of years. But I do think, obviously, Bitcoin is going to come back to 29,000 at some point in time and fill the CME gap. So this is really just a quick video to let you know that we have filled the next CME gap, being the CME gap at 24,600. And the next CME gap is just below previous all-time high. And we once again had this in December of 2020. So if we do come down to the next CME gap, which in my opinion, I do think is not a likelihood, I think it's an inevitability. I believe that most of these CME gaps will be filled. Almost all of them have about a 99% likelihood of getting filled. It almost always happens So with that being said, keep your eyes on the next CME gap. It is down here at 18,500. This would represent a 20.3% drop in the Bitcoin price before we do come down to the next CME. So hope you enjoyed today's video. Hope you found some value in looking at this chart. As always, not financial advice. Cowboy out. Peace.